Caitlin Clark's gotten no rest, and she's been the conversation for us over this past 24 hours. Poll is now closed, or I believe it's closed. We'll get the final results to you in our Judge versus Clark conversation. But we shift it. Who are those athletes that change the game? Who are those athletes that just, I don't know, were untouchable during that time? Tim Tebow was the name that we brought up and that many have brought up, but Tim Tebow can't be the only athlete that we think of. Is there an athlete that you think of?
So I actually think she's on a level of her own, but to me, like, I think of a phenomenon. I think of Lynn Sanity. Jeremy Lin for 2 weeks was a phenomenon.
It's a good nominee.
Like, I know it only lasted so long, but while it was there, man, were people so excited. Everyone all of a sudden had a Jeremy Lin
Cover
jersey.
of Sports Illustrated.
Like, in 2 weeks. It was remember, he was sleeping on his friend's couch and literally, like, transcended, again, maybe a 2-week period, but still, it was a phenomenon.
And it was something that you couldn't deny.
Couldn't deny.
You had to be a part of. Like, if you were in New York, like going to the Knicks game, there was something to it. But again, pretty short-lived. Jeremy Lin had an NBA career.
He did.
Afterwards. The Linsanity stopped after a certain point but it was insane for that short period of time. I think that's a really good one. I'm going to give you one that may not seem like it because I think that the athlete is too great, but I think actually lives up to the expectations, and it's golf. It's Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Like Tiger Woods, like there was a hype of Tiger when he turned pro in 1996. There was Nike behind him. It was the whole deal. He completely changed the game and then became, who many feel, the greatest player that golf has ever seen. And there is the debate. Jack's got more majors. There are those who say nobody played at the level that Tiger did, but Tiger continued that. And then even when he wasn't at his peak, and we see it now because he's not at his peak, he is still that draw. And we're talking about this, 27 years later, since he won the Masters. So to have that is my biggest one. I think that would be a difficult one to top, considering how great Tiger Woods was, how appealing he was to so many, the phenomenon that he was, and how we just brought everyone together. I put Tiger Woods on that list.
I think that's a good one because it's like LeBron isn't part of this conversation. Like, LeBron is his own, but like we were expecting LeBron. We heard about LeBron when he was 13 years old. Like, it's a little bit different. I feel like his phenomenon has been for how long now in the NBA? But it's just different. Like, I feel like Tiger Woods, Caitlin Clark, Jeremy Lin, this just came out of nowhere.
Listen, there was Jordan, there's Kobe.
Right.
It's
a separate type of a phenomenon that we're talking about here.
It's not just greatest ever.
No, it's not.
There's something more to that. You mentioned, Jason, earlier, Dale Earnhardt Jr.
I think that there was a discussion point, and I'll let the listeners behind the curtain here. The initial prep conversation of this topic was more about how fan bases have been just crazy for an athlete, and what the phenomenon is definitely a part of it, but there's also this like unexplained fandom, and that's where my head went to Dale Jr. I knew that he had the background with the family and everything else, but no matter how long he went and he just was kind of an average driver, he had this massive fan base when there were other drivers that were very much more successful that couldn't even come close to his in Q rating and moving the needle, and there's just something about it that you just can't explain. There's that intangible thing about it.
And to do what we always do, phenomenon, fact or situation that is observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question. How does this happen?
And that's a perfect way, yeah.
I would even say Dale Sr., which I think is, if you want to talk about the origin of it, like you could say Junior because everybody loves Senior. There was something about, Dale Sr., in who he was and the intimidator and liked or loved, but as someone who transcended racing as well in terms of able to cross over, Jeff Gordon was a super marketable guy, kind of like your your mainstream guy, which then put him in the rivalry. So that's the only thing that I would say against myself in saying Dale Sr. And to your point, Dale Jr. was able to make that crossover, where I think Dale Sr. was so locked in NASCAR, but still I think he was above most others. I think that's a pretty good nominee. Iowa Sam, Nick, do you have any phenoms that you wanted to put on our list that you feel step? Because I have a couple more, but I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Well, I was just thinking, and this is probably recency bias, but I just thought Colorado football at the beginning of last year.
Yes, I actually do
definitely
like that
was
one.
a thing. After that TCU game, they were on top of the world, and I mean, they were getting people watching. Colorado State was a massively watched game in the non-conference, and it became every team's biggest game as they continued through the season. And so that was something recently that came to my mind. I know not an athlete.
I know, Iowa Sam, it's tough to match Caitlin Clark. Is there anybody else in your mind? Because I'll throw one out there. It doesn't match it, but it goes along the point of what we're talking about, like when we talk about LeBron, because there's other stars in the league. Odell Beckham Jr. Now, maybe not to the extent, but he was doing things that we hadn't really seen on the football field. There may have been better wide receivers with better stats, but the catches that he made, the splash that he made, the times where he made, Sunday Night Football, making these plays in New York again helps, but like there was maybe not to the extreme of Caitlin Clark, but I do think that if the Giants were playing for a time, you were going to watch because Odell Beckham Jr. was playing.
Yeah, I think that's a good one because I don't recall seeing as many pictures of one player catching ridiculous passes. Like, you didn't have to be watching the game. You go on social media, and there was a still picture of him catching a ball, and you were like, how?
Yeah.
I'm going to go now watch this play because I don't know how he did this. But I have all the still pictures of him and these crazy catches. That's a good one.
Johnny Manziel was another name that was thrown out there in our pre-show meetings.
I think that's also a good one. Not for what he did in the NFL, but obviously he was a college phenomenon.
There's something so when we talk about the phenomenon of Caitlin Clark, her being from Iowa, being from the state where there is no pro sport, no offense to the Cyclones, I know they're going to take offense to this, but it's a Hawkeye state. That's why they call it the Hawkeye state. Her being from Iowa, her being from the Midwest, all plays a part, just like it does for Johnny Football, being from Texas, being that Texas kid at Texas A&M, getting that nickname, carrying it out, and winning the Heisman Trophy, and then still being in school, and then going to the NFL and completely flaming out. But he was always the topic of conversation leading up to winning that Heisman Trophy, about mid-season of the Heisman Trophy. Then after he wins the Heisman, as we saw in the documentary, it was just on fire until he ultimately flamed out. But I think Manziel was a name that was thrown up in our pre-show meetings that is one that has to be a part of this group.
Yeah, after the documentary, I think you were like, man, even more impressed with how he was able to sustain that level of play and that lifestyle. Yeah. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah, let's go to the state of Texas. Dwayne is in Texas. Dwayne, welcome to Covino and Rich.
Yes, I might be dating myself a little bit, but how about Fernando Valenzuela during his prime?
Yeah.
That was pretty phenomenal.
That is a great nomination, considering you have Fernando Mania.
Exactly.
Like right there. Like there's not.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. 20-year-old.
I am so pleased to be like, I don't remember when it happened. I wasn't old enough. Jason Stewart, do you remember Fernando Mania?
No, I do. I was 10, 11 years old, and it was like the perfect mixture of he had immediate success, unhittable. He had this what do you call that? Screwball that nobody was throwing, and then the Latino population in Los Angeles. It was like that combination of like a native Mexican having success and the population of this city. It was a perfect blend.
Do you think Caitlin Clark has the same effect if she is here 10 years earlier?
No, I don't. And the big reason is because of social media. It's just she caught fire because of the way she was taking those threes, those logo threes, and you would see it on social media. No, it would not be the same effect.
I also think because of society,
Sure, yeah.
in that part of, and I do think that, the Steph Curry of women's basketball is a great way to characterize, because we did all fall in love with Curry.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Curry wasn't there from his rookie season. Like, it was a couple of seasons before he became Steph Curry.
Yeah, nobody thought he was going to do it.
Yeah. But I just wonder, in terms of if it was a decade earlier, if it would have been the same. Doug's in Boise, Idaho. Who are we missing on this phenomenon list that we are trying to track down?
I think you got the wrong. Hello.
Hey, Doug. Doug, what do we have the wrong what?
This one was very short-lived. I'm thinking Tommy DeVito.
Oh,
yeah,
great
that was a
one.
good one.
That's a good one. You got the right one, Doug. You got the right one there.
That is perfect.
Chris Perfett, here, employee Fox Sports Radio, bought a Tommy DeVito jersey.
Yeah.
And I don't think has regretted a penny of it.
I know. And that one was also a short stint, but a phenomenon.
Yes.
A phenomenon. Also, New York, all of that does, add to it as well. But that was a good one.
Can I just add something? Was the
Yes.
Tommy DeVito stuff less about play on the field and more about the fact that that's one of the main characters from Goodfellas and also all the Italian stuff?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they weren't good. And
yeah.
then,
He won like a game. He was like 1-1 or 1-2. Or
they
2-1.
were getting crushed, but
Yeah.
then they ended up winning, and they manufactured some stuff together.
Yeah.
And he did statistically, I think maybe in his third or fourth game, maybe threw for 200 yards, and they found a way to win. So it was a little Tebow-esque in finding a way to win when you're not that great. But, yeah, Tommy DeVito, I watched him in the preseason game against the Lions a little bit. Looked sharp. Let's go to the great state of Maine. John, welcome to Covino and Rich.
Hey, guys. I'm on my way to the hospital to work, but how about...
Good. I'm glad you're going to work. Thank goodness you're going to work.
Yeah, but this will show my age. How about John Force in drag racing? Because he came on, and all of a sudden you went for an oil change, and there were John Force posters and pants. You couldn't go anywhere without your car.
Are you gunning it at every stoplight? Like once it turns green, is that what John Force did to you? Having flame?
No, my age shows my vehicle. I got an old man vehicle, so
Oh.
no, I don't putt either. But yeah, I've driven everything from a tank to you name it. So
Hey.
I did that when I was younger.
I love the nomination. We appreciate it, and thank goodness you're going to work at the hospital.
Yes.
And not the emergency room for your own medical needs. Thank goodness. John in the great state of Maine nearly gave us a heart attack.
Yeah,
here.
I was like, oh gosh.
I'm on my way to the ER, but I wanted to get in on the conversation.
I know. I got one, which I don't know, but maybe it's a recency bias, kind of like Nick said. But what about Paul Skeens?
I would argue he would be half of the equation.
Half of the equation.
Libby Dunn is the other.
And you're I could see that. Yeah.
How about this one? Ichiro.
Yes.
I know like Otani is the recent one, but I feel like there was like an Ichiro craze for him and the success that he had. It was a name that I wrote down. May not be to the level that we were talking about, but I think we have a bunch of really good nominees.
Yeah. Ichiro is good too.
The Tebow is the most likely one, but Linsanity was crazy. Cover of SI, the whole deal. Good stuff. Good work, everybody. Great job.
Go team.
It is Covino and Rich here on Fox Sports Radio, live from the TireRack.com studios. Hit her up at Monse Bolaños. You can find me at Dan Beyer on Fox. We'll follow up with some of your recommendations and nominations there. Just like Kelly tweeted in saying Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa during that home run battle. Very organic, but good nominee at that time. The home run craze in 98 was like no other, and now we know why it was like no other.